This is a true story that is widely known in my village. People in the village still refer to this story as a haunting horror experience to this day. A long time ago, a wealthy family in my village reconstructed a dowry house. When it was completed, the owner of the house lavished the villagers with a big party. The party went on until the middle of the night. Everyone drank a lot until they blushed as they walked out. Following the departure of the guests, the residents of the house began to clean and rest in the new home. But in the middle of the night, while lying on the newly constructed bed, the owner felt extremely uneasy. He kept tossing and turning all night, unable to sleep, and then experienced severe stomach pain, cold and shivering all over his body. When he couldn't take it any longer, he turned to call his wife, who was lying next to him, to check on him. But he called again and again. His wife did not answer, so he went off to bed alone and checked the house's fireplace. As soon as he set his foot on the brick floor, his entire body became cold with such an unpleasant chill. He took a few steps, felt uneasy and looked back with trepidation. When he looked at the bed, he found himself lying motionlessly there. His entire face was white, his eyes wide open as if he was a corpse. He was terrified by the scene. He mumbled a few sentences, pointed to his own body, shivered, then held. He took a step back, seeing himself lying on the bed, but appearing to be placed on a coffin. He fainted out of fear, and gloomy darkness enveloped the space in front of his eyes. The wife awoke the next morning to prepare breakfast as usual. She waited for so long, but her husband never came out for breakfast. She entered the room to check. However, when she arrived, her husband's body was cold, but his pulse was still present, albeit weakly. She and her children rushed her husband to the hospital for an examination. However, no doctor was able to diagnose his illness. Her family agreed to let him stay in the hospital for an extended period of time, but there was no progress, so they returned him home in pain. At the hospital, his grandson stood behind his mother, concernedly looking at him. The house's owner at this time was in a coma, looking exactly like he had died. The whole face had begun to turn grey because of lack of breath. His son took his wife and children home to seek for treatment after completing the procedure at the hospital. Everyone in the house had been worriedly waiting beside his bed all night. Because the grandson needed to go to the toilet late at night, he took a flashlight and went out to the toilet alone. But as soon as he got to the door, a strange noise came from behind the child, like a large animal breathing. He turned his head towards the noise and noticed a figure twice the size of an adult slowly walking into the courtyard. That piqued the boy's interest, and he crouched silently behind him, watching this colossal monstrosity himself. The monstrosity rushed in front of the boy, dragging an iron chain on the ground, resounding throughout the yard. The boy assumed that was a thief in his house, so he recklessly approached and asked loudly who he was. But he didn't seem to hear his voice, and he went straight to the owner's room window. The boy went to the door, shouted loudly, and called his parents for help because he was afraid the giant would harm his grandfather. But as he moved forward, the giant's face appeared, clearly in the light, revealing the form of a long-tongued demon. His cheekbones protruded, and he slowly turned his face to look at him, showing his long tongue, which was long enough to touch the ground and threaten the poor boy. The scene caused him to panic and scream. His parents became terrified too when they heard his screams outside. The two dashed out to find him and discovered him sitting on the ground in front of the door to the grandpa's room. When his parents saw this, they immediately came over and helped him up. The two immediately inquired as to what had just happened. The boy cried out and pointed forward, claiming to have encountered a demon. Then he described the entire appearance of the demon he had encountered. At first, his parents didn't believe him. However, because of his tenacity, the two hesitated. His mother appeared to have recognized the problem and immediately advised her husband to invite a good shaman in the village to come over. The house's owner's son invited a shaman that night. This was my village's most well-known one. As soon as he walked into the house, he went to the owner's bed and took his pulse to check on his situation. After checking his pulse, he sighed and stated that the house's owner had a strange disease that he had never seen before. When her daughter-in-law heard it, she burst into tears, worrying that he would never wake up again. The shaman couldn't ignore after seeing it, but he needed more time to figure out what was causing it. He stood up and walked around, his hands clasped behind his back. A pensive and tense expression appeared on his face. Suddenly he turned to look at the man's bed, and his face changed color, revealing surprise. He was serious when he asked the daughter-in-law to find him a tape measure. He took it and carefully measured around the owner's bed. Nobody knew what he aimed for. He was measuring and calculating solemnly by pressing his knuckles. Then his face revealed a mixture of surprise and concern. He looked up at the daughter-in-law who was standing in front of him and asked her who built and designed this bed. The daughter-in-law attempted to recall and confirm with the shaman that this bed was designed by a builder. Later, the daughter-in-law added that her father and the builder had a falling out while the house was being constructed. Her father assaulted the builder, injuring him, and deducted a week's wages from him. The shaman immediately recognized the root of the problem after hearing the story. He was enraged, yelling at the builder for being a jerk. He pointed to the bed and told everyone in the house to dismantle it as soon as possible because it was actually a coffin. Everyone in the family initially didn't believe it, but when they double-checked it, everyone was shocked and had to admit it. The shaman then explained that in order to exact revenge on the owner, the builder purposefully fashioned his bed in the shape of a coffin and imprisoned the owner's soul within it. The homeowner's son and a few neighbors used a hammer to break the bed, as instructed by the shaman. Every brick had been broken and was scattered everywhere, with dust flying. After a while, the cement and sand bricks that served as the bed's background appeared, along with a paper doll in the center. The landlord's son and the shaman picked up the doll, and the owner's full name was written on the back. The shaman then prepared a cup of tonic for the host, which he carefully served to him. After half an hour of taking the medicine, the host moved slowly opening his eyes, as if he had just awoken. He opened his eyes and looked up at everyone in the house, his face worried and scared, as if he had just woken up from a nightmare. Despite the treatment, the owner's spirit was not much better as a result of a neurological complication, becoming a famous story in the village, and the builder also met with disaster later.